Jedi comes next, and then it's Empire. And this is the sucky part, because I actually do like New Hope. I thought New Hope is probably my favorite one out of all of them. It's a nice, fine film. It's just a fine film. It's an enjoyable film. It's really a nice balance of feel-good shit at the movies, but they also have moments of levity and poignant moments, like when Luke comes home and sees that his family was eradicated, and he's like,
Yeah.
I should go, there's nothing here for me now. You got to be introduced to a lot of the characters. It felt fresh, it felt new. You got the Jedi battle wasn't the greatest, but it's whatever, and then you got to see a nice dogfight at the end, and shit blew up. So I give a New Hope. New Hope's going to be number one, and unfortunately, because The Force Awakens is so similar to New Hope, it goes right underneath it. So it's Phantom, Sith, Clones, then it's Jedi, Empire, Force Awakens, and then it's A New Hope. So that's... I felt like there was more going on in A New Hope than there was in Empire. Because everyone really regards Empire as being great because of the third act, obviously. Shit didn't go well for a lot of people, so they were like, yeah, I love Empire. But a lot of the film is Luke in a swamp talking to a puppet. And then Chewie, the droids, Han, Leia, sitting in the Millennium Falcon, just chilling out. And then some shit happens, and then everything kicks into gear. So I think A New Hope had a nice balance, but I think people really like Empire because of the sucker punch. And sometimes when you have a good sucker punch, it kind of makes up for everything else. It's kind of like you have an album, right, by a band or an artist that's solid all the way through. But then you can have an album that's kind of just biding its time. It starts off very slow, and then there's this crescendo, and the crescendo is so impactful that it gets bumped up. Because in my opinion, Pink Floyd has had better records than The Wall, but a lot of people regard The Wall as their best because of when it elevated to something, it really hit its thing. Let's just be clear, The Force Awakens is only where it is because it's not identical to A New Hope, but it's just so similar that it's just, I can't let it go. And it's a Star Wars film. That's why I'm a little bit more harsh on it, because it's not like it's Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, you go into the cinema, you know what you're gonna see. You know what you want to see. You want to see creative kills. You want to see Jason Voorhees. You want to see some tits and some ass. So if every film is basically that, you're okay with it because that's what you're going to see. But what made Star Wars what it was because up until then, a lot of people didn't see or combine a lot of the same elements that was in New Hope. People have never seen anything like that before. By the time Empire and Jedi rolled around, we started getting films in the 80s that were pushing the boundaries a bit. When we're talking about narrative, special effects, set design, creativity, it was just... I could see those two films kind of like being in an era where you had Terminators and Indiana Jones films. And you had some really classic sci-fi films. Even the sci-fi B films kind of held their own. And then you had the slasher movement. So it was in an era where there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of genre films that a lot of people would just look down their nose on. They were doing really well. Like I said, a lot of slasher films, a lot of sci-fi. There were some great comedies too in the 80s. And in fact, when we're thinking about dramas, 80s was a weak era for dramas. There were some good ones in there, but really the 80s was ran by the niche film market. And then the 90s happened, we don't want to talk about that. So The Force Awakens, it is what it is, like I said, I think at least 2 times already. So we're not even going to get into that, but there's a couple of theories that people have about characters in the film. Now, this Rey shit. We gotta address this because they've gone out of their way to suggest that Rey, right, is not a Skywalker, and the fans are saying, "Oh, well, that's good," because that would have been too predictable. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you have got to be some of the dumbest people I've ever encountered in my life. This is how Disney was able to take A New Hope, give it different window dressing, and sell it to you all this time, all these years down the road later, sell it to you, and you went and paid for it more than once, more than twice, some people, sometimes a hell of a lot more. You went and paid for it, and you were okay with it. Because you're gullible. And I don't mean that to be as insulting as it seems. It's just, my God. Know when someone is withholding information from you because they don't want you to guess it, because it's pretty damn obvious she's a Skywalker. There is no arresting line of narrative that can work with her not being a Skywalker.
I agree.
If she just ends up being some chick, right? That would just be pointless. Because you'd have to go back and do too much explaining. There'd have to be like a good 15 minutes at the end of the film or during the film where you have the Matrix architect scene. Somewhere down the film where it's like, okay, well, she was this and she was that, and we grew her in a lab and blah, 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 blah. And guess what, Kira? You're actually, I keep calling her Kira because I have a feeling that's what her first name's going to end up being.
What?
I keep calling her Kira because I have a feeling that's what her first name's going to end up being. It may not even...
I've been thinking it's going to be Padme.
Nah, they already did the Ben shit. I don't know. I don't think they go to that well again. But then again, they went to A New Hope again. So it's kind of like in order to be surprised, you kind of have to think two lines of thought. You have to think they would never do that, and then you would have to think, well, obviously they might do that. So it's kind of a weird situation. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. But before, like I said, before the film came out, her name was listed as Kira Ray in a lot of corners of the internet and stuff like that. And that went away. And now she's just Ray. And I don't even know how she came to that name because she was left as a child. I mean, was she raised by anyone? You know, so it's kind of an odd situation. So anyway, like I was saying, if she's not a Skywalker, it automatically makes her a very uninteresting character. Because she's already suffering from the Mary Sue syndrome, which can be explained away if she ends up being what a lot of people hypothesize, that she was a really talented youngling to the point where it was frightening how advanced she was. So they said, fuck it, we gotta... Because the flashbacks show her being left as a child.
Yeah. Now,
in the film, I don't know if they're adhering to the age difference of the two actors in the film. Like, is it official that he's 10 years older than her? Because the actors...
he is supposed to be older. I don't know how much.
But they don't look... See, the thing is that they don't look like there's a difference in age between them, because he has a young look. He looks really young. So even though he's like, what, 32, 33, something like that, early 30s, he still looks like he could pass for early 20s, which is what she is around. And a lot of the times you have actors that are brother and sister that aren't even in the ballpark age-wise, because it's a matter of just how you look. So, like I said, she's left on the planet, mind wiped, because like she was just way too advanced for someone that young. And they're afraid that because she's so young and she's so advanced and she's so powerful, that if the Sith ever got a hold of her, it would be game over for them. So I still believe she's a Skywalker, but they're trying to quell that suspicion so that when they reveal who she is, people are like, oh my god. But it's the same thing with the Han Solo death. People see it coming. The way that they killed Han Solo, you saw it coming not a mile away. You saw that shit. We live in New Jersey. You saw that shit from Denver. And vice versa. Because they didn't do it in a way that was... But then again, the way that Ben went out, or Obi-Wan went out in A New Hope, was kind of predictable too. The guy was like, he looked over, he's like, okay, you got me. Because it gave Luke that motivation. So, I don't know. It's just... Yeah, I really wish that they found a way for him to die in a way that wasn't predictable and it felt like a hero's death. And then they didn't even treat his death like a hero's death. It was like, okay, we're gonna celebrate a victory, I guess, sorta, kinda. I posted a status on Facebook. I said, Jesus Christ, if you believe that Rey is anything other than a Skywalker, then you are among the idiotic mouth breathers that saw this film, saw that it was A New Hope, and still held it in high esteem. And then Rory posted, what if she is Luke or Vader's hand clone? She uses the Force more like Obi-Wan did. She's a clone of their hands, so funny. It's a funny little theory. It'd actually be more interesting than stuff that they could go with, you know. But yeah, okay. So let's say that they want to trick us, and she's not a Skywalker. What scenario can they go with that would make us interested in her? Because up until now, like I said in the past, like a lot of people have said, is that the Star Wars saga thus far, and probably should always be, centered around the Skywalkers. You could have the Rogue Ones, you could have the origin Obi-Wan Kenobi origin Han Solo story, you could have that sort of stuff. But in the end, it should revolve around some conflict involving the Skywalker family and the people they surround themselves with. So, up until now, that's pretty much been the deal. So what if she isn't a Skywalker? Where could they go with her that would make people care and pay attention? And be invested and be involved and all that good stuff. Because, okay, even though Hayden Christensen sucked, right? We still like Padme, and I'm guessing if they got married, that made her officially a Skywalker. So, you know. So we cared about her, even if Hayden Christensen was not the greatest actor in the world.
Alternative to her being... Alright, an alternative to her being Luke's daughter.
Sorry for the rattling. I am unearthing an order of chicken wings. Yeah, so she's not a Skywalker. But she has to be some character that people would actually care about. And would actually make sense in all of this. I hate to beat this line to death, but your silence says it all. There isn't a narrative.
The only thing I can think of, maybe making her Ezra Pritchard's daughter.
Who?